All right, so today we are going to be reviewing Intercept form. So again, you guys, um, things that you really should be understanding. I apologize for not being here today, but if there's something from last night's homework that you're unclear on, please shoot me an email and let me know that you want to get together, and I'll make a point to email you back and um, find a time for us to meet really quickly. Um, so this is a quick review from yesterday on standard form. It says a bird takes off from the roof of a 250-foot tall building and flies to the ground below. Its path takes the form of a parabolic arch. The bird's height can be modeled by h of t equals negative t squared, so we know it's opening down right here, plus 15t plus 250, where h of t is the height of the bird above the ground in feet, t seconds after leaving the roof. So our x is our time and our y is our height. How long is the bird at 300 feet or higher above the ground? Okay, so basically when you think about this, you guys, we have a parabola, that's opening upside down like this. I know that this is the point 0, 250. So right here, this is 0, 250 because that's my C value. The question's asking how long is the bird at 300 feet or higher? So 300 feet is somewhere around here, let's say. They want to know how long is the bird above. So from here to here, we want to know what that distance is in time. From what time to what time. So what we're going to do is we are going to take this, or y, and change it to 300 because I want it to be 300 or above, minus t squared plus 15t plus 250. Okay, and then let's just take a real quick trip down memory lane to last semester. We can only solve these if they're equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract the 300 over and 0 out my left side. So I have negative t squared plus 15t. If I subtract the 300 over, it's minus 50. So from there, I'm going to factor out a negative. So I have negative t squared minus 15t plus 50. And then I can factor it. I have 0 equals negative. I have a t and a t. My signs are going to both be negative because I need two numbers that multiply to be a positive but add to be a negative. This is going to be 10 and 5. T times t is t squared. Negative 5 minus 10 is your negative 15t, and negative 10 times negative 5 is your positive 50. So if I set these equal to 0, my two t values end up being 5 and 10, which means this is starting at 5 and ending at 10. So if it's starting at 5 and ending at 10, you're going to find the distance or the difference between those times, and it'll be a total of 5 seconds. So just remember that's not because I'm pulling the first value, it's because I'm finding the difference. So with that being said, we're going to launch into Intercept form today. So the first one I will work through in its entirety. The second one I already have worked out. So what I'm going to ask you to do is on number 2, pause the video, work it out yourself, make sure it's a good self-check, make sure you're good to go. Then we're going to address a few other things on the back that don't necessarily have to do with the grinding through the key characteristics. So remember when you are doing this, you have some easy things and some more difficult things. Right now, right off the bat, I can tell that I'm going to be able to tell my x-intercepts. Obviously, it's intercept form, so it kind of lends itself to that. Your x-intercepts here are the opposite, so negative 5, 0, and negative 1, 0. Remember, when you're coming out of the parentheses, you change the sign. So then my a value, there's just a 1 here, so that means it's positive. It's going to open up. If my graph opens up, that means I have a minimum at something. All right, so referring to your notes from yesterday, Remember, if we have intercept form to find the vertex, we have x equals p plus q divided by 2, so -5 plus -1 divided by 2. So we get -6 over 2, so the x value is -3. So that not only is the x value of my vertex, that is also my axis of symmetry. Then I'm going to substitute it in, and I have -3 plus 5 and -3 plus 1. And I have -3 plus 5 is 2, -3 plus 1 is -2. So my y value is -4. So that's -4 here, -4 here. And then the last thing we need to do is figure out our y-intercept. Well, remember with every y-intercept, x is 0. So if x is 0, I'm going to have 0 plus 5 and 0 plus 1. Obviously, you guys can probably do this without writing it all out, which is great. You end up with 5 times 1, which is 5. So the sketch is only for you to check your work like we discussed yesterday. So we're at -3, -4. Our intercepts would be -1 and 5, and our y-intercept would be up here, which all makes sense. Okay, so from there, you would know that everything's in alignment and works out. All right, so what I want you to do, like I mentioned, is to look at number 2, and I want you to do the same process and pause the video and then check your work. All right, so you should have gotten this for number 2. You should have gotten that it opens down because A is negative. You should have gotten a vertex of 175. Well, since it opens down, it's a max, and that's at 75 with an axis of symmetry of x equals 1. The x-intercepts obviously were the first thing you should have pulled, -4 and 6. Your y-intercept, that's this work right here, when you set x equal to 0, is 72. Okay? And your sketch shows that that all works out. So now, on the back, we have a couple different things. You're going to see your favorite picture frame problem is making a comeback. Okay, so just a couple things we're going to chat about. Number 3, I want to talk about wording in number 3. So this says determine the quadratic equation in standard form given the double zeros at x equals -2, I'm sorry, -10 and passing through the point -9, -6. You guys, double zeros, that means that technically part of your equation is going to be, there we go, an x minus 10 or an x plus 10 squared. So in this case, you have double zeros at 10. So you're here. Well, remember when that happened yesterday? That means this is coming from an x plus 10 squared because you have 2 of them. So that means this is going to be the vertex. Okay, whenever you have 2 of your zeros end up being on the x-axis, that's your vertex. So then it's passing through the point -9, -6. So then this, let's see, -9, -6 would be here and here. So this is floating down somewhere. So it's going to be opening down. Okay, so here I'm going to treat this. You can do this a couple different ways. I'm going to treat this point 10, 0. I'm sorry, I said 10, 0. Oh man, guys, I don't want to start this all over. We are just going to pretend that that didn't happen and make some quick changes. Watch this. It's like math magic. We're just going to head on over here. And we are going to say, just kidding, it's supposed to be over here. Hey, -6, you gotta love the symmetry of parabolas. Sorry, now we have a better picture. Alrighty, killing it right now. So this is -10, 0. There we go, because you have a double 0 at -10. If some of you were watching the last minute of that video, like, what is she doing? Good, I'm glad you caught it, since, you know, it took me a minute. So, that means that we have -10, 0, and this is our h and our k, and then this is our x and our y. So again, we just need to solve for a. You guys, again, we talked about this yesterday, and hopefully you're starting to get annoyed that I keep saying again, 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 because it's going to come up. If this is the point -9, -6, think about that pattern of A. Your x values, I went over 1, and then I went down 6. So A should be -6. If you do it algebraically instead, it should work out anyway. So you should have -6 equals A times -9 minus a -10 squared plus 0. So we have -6 equals, I'm not even going to worry about that, it's plus 0. -9 plus 10 is 1. 1 squared is 1. You have 1A. So you have -6 equals A. So your final answer is y equals -6 times x minus a -10 squared plus 0, which we don't write. And there we go. Okay. Oh, I'm an idiot. It says in standard form. Let's multiply it out. God, you guys, I am like not built for this today. All right. Let's keep going. We Oh God, maybe a good math teacher will show up tomorrow, huh? Wouldn't that be great? All right, so I'm gonna just move this together. Maybe. There we go. Nope. There we go. Okay. So that would be if I wanted vertex form, but as I clearly stated, I wanted standard form right here. Just can't read. All right, so this is y equals -6 times x plus 10 times x plus 10 because there's 2 of them. So we have y equals -6, x times x is x squared. 10 and 10 is a positive 20x, 10 and 10 multiplied is 100. So then your last step is y equals -6x squared minus 120x minus 600. There we go. Now we got a real answer there. Okay. All right. Here, this says write the equation for the graph shown. Okay, so we don't need to bother about what specific type of form we want. So we know we're not going to do standard because it doesn't matter. Or not, it doesn't matter. Oh gosh, guys, I'm so sorry. Because we can't. We can't do it, guys. You can't start in standard form, and if I had my math brain on right now, I could actually make that sound good, but you just can't do it. Okay, so here, if you look at this, this graph, I'm going to zoom in on mine a little bit since I have the luxury of doing that, and you can't do that quite on your paper. If you look at this graph, you guys, it's very clear to see that you have an x-intercept here and an x-intercept here. The vertex is a little bit harder to tell because it's not sitting at a pretty point. So I'm going to use this as my P and this is my Q. And I'm going to use intercept form here to solve for A because what I can see is that a point like right here or right here, something like that. This is a clean point. You could pick any of these points as your x and y. I'm going to use this point up here. It's the point 2, 2. So I can now say that I have not only a p and a q, but also an x and a y right here. So I have y equals a times x minus p times x minus q. So my y value is 2. I need my a value. My x value is 2. My p value is -2, so change that. My x value is 2 and my q value is 3. So I have 2 equals a times 4 times -1. So that means I have 2 equals -4a. So if I divide both sides by -4, my a value is going to be -1/2. So I'm going to end up with y equals -1/2 times x minus a -2 times x minus 3. Okay, it doesn't state, I'm going to double check. It does not state what kind of form it should be in, But obviously we could multiply this through, we could even find the vertex, things like that. But for right now, obviously, you know, I live by work smarter, not harder. We don't need to do any more work. All right, let's come over here. Your favorite. Let's see if I can bring my A game for this problem. We have a family portrait that's hanging on the wall that has a frame with dimensions of 11 by 9. Okay, let's make it a little bigger. There we go. If the width of the frame can be represented by X, what are the dimensions of the portrait if its area is 35 square inches? Okay, so here, let's make this a little smaller. All of this is the same. There isn't anything funny about X, 2X, all that stuff. So what you want to remember is that the larger part of this from here to here is 11. So if now I want to figure out what this part is, I need to take X away because I need to get rid of this part of the frame and get rid of this part of the frame, which is X and X. So this part right here is going to be 11 minus 2X. Then the same thing with this. This is 9 top to bottom, but I just want this guy right here. I'm going to get rid of the frame, get rid of the frame, so X and X, and this is going to be 9 minus 2X. Okay, so I know the area, so all of this in here is 35 square inches. So that means I have 11 minus 2X and 9 minus 2X, and that equals 35. So now we just need to solve for X. So we have 11 times 9, so 99, negative 22X minus 18X, and then plus 4X squared equals 35. So if we clean that up quite a bit, we have 4X squared. Negative 22 minus 18 is negative 40X. And then we have plus 99 equals 35. So again, we can't solve unless one side's equal to 0. So subtract your 35 over. Okay, you guys, if you need to show that step because it just helps you not make a mistake, please do. You guys, remember, I don't show steps all the time. Sometimes I should, especially today. But you don't want to lose points on things just because you were, you know, not wanting to write a step or thought you were better off because you didn't write it or whatever the case may be. Always double, triple check your work. So now that we're here, we can take a 4 out, and I'm left with x squared minus 10x plus 16 equals 0. So if I factor that out, I have an x and an x. I'm going to have a minus 2 and a minus 8 here. So x times x is x squared. 8 minus 2 is negative 10. 2 times 8 is 16. So your two x values are 2 and 8. So in this case, let's go back and read the question. It says, if the width of the frame can be represented by x, what are the dimensions of the portrait if its area is 35 square inches? So here, one of the dimensions was the 11 minus 2x. The other dimension was the 9 minus 2x. So if I take that 2 and I substitute it in, then I'll have 11 minus 4, which is 7. If I substitute it in here, I'll have 9 minus 4, which is 5. And 7 times 5 is 35. So we know that if x equals 2, then we have a 7-inch by 5-inch frame. Okay, now let's check the other one. Just because one worked, remember, doesn't mean that the other one isn't going to work. So if x is 8, 11 minus 2 times 8 would be 11 minus 16. That's negative 5. That is the reason this doesn't work. We can't have a negative dimension. So your only answer is that one. Okay. All right. Last but not least, we have number 6. Number 6 says the school's drama department is putting on a production. Instead of using the school's indoor rectangular, oh, that's spelled wrong, sorry guys, rectangular stage, the department had decided to build an outdoor rectangular stage to accommodate a greater audience. The width of the outdoor stage is 6 feet less than its length. If the total area of the outdoor stage is 720 feet, what is the length and width of the outdoor stage? All right, so we're dealing with a rectangle here. And we know that the area is 720 square feet. So this says the width of the outdoor stage is 6 feet less than its length. All right, 6 feet less. We are subtracting 6 from the other dimension. We don't know the other dimension. So if this is x minus 6. To find the area of a rectangle, it's length times width. So we have x times x minus 6 equals 720. If we multiply that out, we get x squared minus 6x equals 720. Now think about this problem for a second. You have a couple options here. You could subtract the 720 over, and you could go through and then factor. But then you're telling me you need to find factors of 720 that add to be negative 6. That could be easy, that could be not easy. It totally depends on your skill. You guys know how I feel about completing a square. I think it's amazing. So that's what I'm going to do here because I don't have an A value to deal with, and I do have an even B value. So it's the greatest way to do completing the square. So I'm going to do x squared minus 6x plus a blank equals 720 plus a blank. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. What you do to one side, you do to the other. By doing that, we know that this factors to x minus 3 times x minus 3, which is x minus 3 squared equals 729. Okay, so remember that parenthesis will always be half of b, and it'll match exactly what it is. So b is negative, so therefore you're going to have a negative in your parenthesis. Okay, so here I can square root both sides. Okay, we end up with x minus 3 equals plus or minus, the square root of 729 is 27. I would not expect you to know that on a quiz or a test, so I'm just going to tell it to you now, unless I give you a calculator, obviously. So remember, this means x minus 3 could equal 27. That also means x minus 3 could equal negative 27. So if I add 3 to both sides here, I get 30. If I add 3 to both sides here, I get negative 24. Well, the question is saying, what are the length and width? If I go back to substitute in, one of my dimensions is x, the other one is x minus 6. I can't have a negative x because that is my dimension. Then I would be saying that that side's negative 24 feet. It makes no sense. So I have to use my 30. If x is 30, that means this side right here is 30, and that means this side right here is 24. So you have 30 feet by 24 feet. Okay, so again, you guys, all of this stuff we've done before. It's just refreshing your memory, remembering how it all works together, and going from there. Okay, your homework tonight is worksheet number 2. Okay, you're going to see some fractions on here. This isn't difficult because it's not an A value, so don't freak out. Okay, so this front is just practicing. On the back, you have problems like we've done. Zeros, we know our x-intercepts. Number 6, you guys, this, I cannot remember if I changed on your copy after I ran it to print, but this should be a double 0 here. Okay, so treat that like the example we did on the first one on the back. Okay, and then everything else follows your equation, or your notes, excuse me. I was just looking up at this. This is right, the equation for the graph shown in standard form. So remember, you can't start with that. You either have to do vertex form or intercept form. I'm looking at this bad boy right now and thinking, oh, I'm doing intercept form. That's easier, and then multiply it out. Okay, again, shoot me an email. I will be checking my email throughout the day. So if you do need something, let me know. And I can get you help as soon as possible. Okay, thanks for understanding, guys.